Greetings all. Well, as I have reported previously, Hawaii is not one of the easiest places to grow a lot of our common vegetables, especially not here in Puna where it rains quite a bit. We get problems with various types of molds and insects and so on. One of the plants that I'd been having quite a bit of trouble growing here actually is basil. Basil was a problem because basil is very susceptible to anthracnose. It's also very susceptible to downy mildew. Now, I never had downy mildew in California, but we have it here, and boy, it'll mess up a crop of basil real fast. When all your leaves turn black and you look underneath and you got gray fuzz down below, that's the downy mildew. Right, Gracie? Yeah, Gracie's come up to check out the video, see what's going on here, right? Good girl. Yeah, so the downy mildew is a big problem. Another one that is very problematic to grow here is spinach. Now, both basil and spinach are two of my favorite leafy greens. I like them a lot. I eat plenty of them, but spinach has problems too. Spinach is susceptible to leaf miners. Spinach is also susceptible to downy mildew. Well, I tried a couple of times with spinach before I finally threw in the towel. But with basil, I kept trying and trying and trying and trying. I wasn't going to give up. Basil was too important. I replaced spinach in my diet with kale. Kale grows easily here. Some things do. Anyway, I finally determined that my big problem with my basil was downy mildew. And it was what was happening. So I went looking for downy mildew resistant varieties, and I found that the University of Hawaii has some, although they're often out of stock. Otherwise, I found Prospera at Johnny's. Johnny's Selected Seeds, Albee in Maine, has several varieties of Prospera. This is Italian large leaf. Those are nice, big leaves. I use basil mostly for making pesto, and so I like nice, big, large leaves. I also will toss basil leaves on pizzas, too. Once I realized that I was beginning to have some luck with basil here when I was using downy mildew-resistant varieties like Prospera, then I thought, well, let's have a look at spinach again. So I went back and I had a look at spinach, and I found out there are a few varieties that are resistant to downy mildew. So I tried one this year, and Kalibri is the name of the spinach I'm using. Now, the trick here is that I've actually interplanted it with this basil. Now, the spinach itself is resistant to the downy mildew, so it's not getting sick, but it usually would get a fly that comes in, lays eggs on the leaf, and then tunnels all through it, just ruins it completely. It's called a leaf miner. Well, I think what happened is I interplanted my spinach with my basil this year in a tub, and I don't think the flies like the basil smell. I think the oil from the basil is making the flies stay away from the spinach. Now, this is going to take some management because the spinach is really growing fast, and so is the basil, and so they're kind of overrunning each other here. But if you look underneath the basil here, you'll see the spinach. And so, timely harvest on both. I harvested spinach this morning and put it into my eggs. I do believe I'm going to take basil out of here today and make myself some pesto. Here's another planter of basil here that's doing quite well. It doesn't have any spinach in it. When it comes to growing stuff here in Puna, where there's a will, there's a way. Yeah, if you don't give up too quickly, perhaps eventually you will come up with a solution to problems, because there have been a few vegetables that really haven't had too many problems here, but then I've got a whole lot more of them that it's very specific that they have to be a certain type, you know, they have to be planted in a certain way and so on. Right, Gracie?
Hello.
Yeah, She's coming over to photobomb again. Keeps wanting to get in the picture. She's trying to find some place to jump up so she can get her face in there, and well, can't jump up in my basil. Right, girl? Yeah. Anyway. You're such a good cat. What a good kitty. Yeah. So, I have folks ask me periodically, where can I find books on what will grow in Hawaii and so on and so forth. And, I've never seen one, at least not one that I would recommend to anybody. Most of the books that were written here about gardening were really written about very, very specific localities. Hawaii has an amazing amount of microclimate. And what works for one person doesn't work for the next one because the weather, the conditions, everything could be completely different in a different part of the island. And so the conclusion I've drawn is there are good resources. You get some agroforestry resources out there, and you got resources with the University of Hawaii, Manoa, because they do raise Hawaiian adapted vegetables and sell the seeds, and they have plenty of information. And so they're about as good a source as any I've run across. That's the truth. But I'd say probably well over 80% of what I've figured out around here, I just did it. You try it, didn't work, you look at it, try to figure out what went wrong, see if there's a solution, make adjustments, try it again. And through trial and error, I eventually determined, for the most part, the problems here with plant varieties is just that, genetics. A lot of this stuff isn't really bred for tropical conditions here in Hawaii, and so when you take a bag of seeds off your favorite seed website from Kansas and toss them in the field here in Puna, well, they don't necessarily grow well. So careful selection through analysis. You can talk to people who are in the general area who have been successful with things or who have failed too. People's failures can also be of a lot of value. I know mine are. You can drop by the nursery here, and I'll plenty of yap. You want some advice? Sure, I'll tell you what I know. But I may or may not have plants on the table. It depends. When it comes to vegetables, especially, these things are coming and going. It's not like where some of the fruit trees, I may have them around for a year or more, but not basil plants or anything like that. They maximum month or so on the table. So if you hit it wrong, sorry, you're gonna have to figure it out yourself. But yeah, trial and error. It's probably the most valuable tool we have here. There is very little scripture written about what works and what doesn't work here, and most of it is misleading anyway. So there you have it, folks. It's entirely possible to grow lovely basil and really good spinach here in Hawaii. It just kind of depends on what varieties you're using. I'll repeat again, I got my seed from Johnny Selected Seeds. They're on the web. This is Prospera large leaf, and the spinach down here is Kalibri. It's Kolibri. I think is how it's spelled rather. Alrighty. Hang loose, folks. Aloha. You all have a good week.